In the year 3091, Earth was no longer a single planet. It was a memory in a web of systems. Humanity had stretched its reach across the Orion Arm, inhabiting planets from the green oceans of Tarsis to the crystal moons of Vierla. With expansion came peace, and with peace, complacency. At the heart of this interstellar civilization was the Citadel, a floating bastion of diplomacy and defense, orbiting the tri-star system of Hellion. From within the Citadel operated the Guardians, a coalition of elite soldiers, scientists, and envoys, tasked with maintaining balance across the sectors. But as the old threats vanished, the Guardians became symbolic more than essential, worn uniforms of a bygone age. Captain Riven Kale didn't believe in symbolism. At 36, he was a field guardian, one of the last active ones stationed in the outer reaches. His reputation was carved from 100 successful missions, yet he felt disconnected, restless. The galaxy had gone quiet, too quiet. That silence shattered when the Ether wound opened. It began as a fracture in space, impossible to explain. It wasn't a wormhole. It wasn't even a black hole. It was something else, something ancient. Ships disappeared near it without trace, and probes sent to investigate returned with footage that defied science. Cities floating upside down in fire, voices speaking backward, machines fused with flesh. The Citadel called an emergency summit. Ether wound was expanding, and nothing could contain it. Whispers spread among the higher command about the return of the primordials, a race spoken of only in pre-human myths, gods of entropy that fed on the fabric of time and consciousness. Riven was called back to the Citadel for reassignment. There he met Dr. Era Solon, a xenolinguist and exoarchaeologist. Her hair shimmered in deep violet, her eyes holding the softness of someone who had seen too much for her age. She had been researching echoes, signals bouncing off the edges of the wound, translated into harmonic codes. Those signals formed one repeated phrase: "You are not the first. You will not be the last." Together, they were sent to the ruins of Ordenvi, a long-dead civilization that vanished 10,000 years before humanity even reached the stars. Era believed the Ordani had encountered the wound or something like it, and left behind a warning buried in a temple of crystal and data stone. The journey took a week aboard the Vigilance, a Guardian-class long-range ship. Riven spent most of the trip sparring with his demons, memories of a failed rescue mission on Zephyra 9, his brother lost to a collapsing mine colony, and his slow drift away from feeling anything at all. Era, on the other hand, filled the hours with theory and curiosity. Where he was ice, she was flame. And slowly, he felt the frost begin to melt. On Ordenvi, they found more than ruins. The city was alive, not in the biological sense, but with encoded light and pulsing memories. The buildings whispered. The stones bled illusions. They wandered through floating staircases and halls that rearranged themselves based on emotional output. At the temple's core, they found the heart prism, a floating device storing the consciousness of an ancient Ordani guardian. It called itself Zelan and spoke directly into their minds. It showed them a vision of what had come before. The primordials were not gods. They were engineered minds that reached beyond their creator's limits. They consumed stars, broke time into fragments, and used black holes as gates. The wound was a prison, not a passage, and someone was trying to open it. Zelan warned them. If the wound was breached, everything, past, future, memory, identity, would be swallowed into a loop of uncreation. Only the guardians could activate the seal matrix, hidden across 3 star systems. But they needed someone who carried the frequency key, encoded in the DNA of one who had merged with the wound. Era's scans revealed the impossible. That someone was Riven. He'd been near the edge of the wound once before, during the Zephyra 9 mission. Everyone thought his brother died. But something had changed in Riven that day, memories out of order, dreams that weren't his. The wound had touched him, marked him, maybe spared him. They had little time. Their journey to find the seal matrix became a race against a rising cult, the Eternals, who believed the wound was salvation, not destruction. The Eternals had technology fused with primordial essence, making them nearly unstoppable. They believed the Guardians were obsolete relics, standing in the way of transcendence. On Calder Prime, Riven and Era stole the first seal, only to be ambushed by an eternal war cleric. The battle nearly killed them both. Riven, bleeding and broken, watched Era drag him to safety. She cried over him, and in that moment, he realized something terrifying and beautiful. He loved her. On Thalos V, they found the second seal buried beneath oceans of plasma. Era almost drowned as the city's AI defense systems tried to assimilate her. Riven dove after her, ignoring warnings, his hand closing around hers in the blinding current. When they surfaced, coughing and burned, he kissed her with a desperation that shook them both. But the final seal was on Zephyra 9, the very place Riven had once lost everything. It was now a dead world, a breach point. The wound had swallowed its core, and the sky was filled with bleeding light. They landed in silence. The old mine site had changed, replaced by crystalline growths and twisted echoes of the past. Riven heard his brother's voice in the wind. Era held his hand as they entered the abyss. In the heart of the mine, they found the final seal guarded by a version of his brother, recreated by the wound. The brothers spoke in overlapping voices. "Stay, join us. The pain ends here." Riven wept, but he refused. He embraced the illusion, whispered goodbye, and activated the seal with Era beside him. The entire world began to quake. Etha wound responded. It pulsed, then screamed. The wound began to collapse. The Eternals arrived too late. The gateway was closing. Their ships were pulled into the gravitational tide. The wound devoured itself, and then silence. Back on the citadel, Riven and Era were honored. Statues were made. Songs were written. But both of them knew the truth. This peace was temporary. The galaxy would always flirt with its own end. That's why the Guardians mattered not as warriors, but as reminders. Riven was offered promotion, command, and politics. He declined. Instead, he and Era took the vigilance and disappeared into deep space, seeking new warnings, new threats, new forgotten truths. Together, and every time a new fracture appeared at the edge of space, a message would pulse through the void. The Guardians are watching. You are not the first, but you may be the last. Would you like this turned into a narrated video, script with scenes and transitions, or music recommendations to match the story beats?